I have a unique look. So if you're not on video, I have one eye, but I spent the majority of my life with two eyes. And in 2014, I was starting my year of 40, so planning on a lot of good things in a milestone year, and ended up 30 days into the year getting a call, Diana, you need to come into the office, which is always a bad sign, and learned that I had a rare form of cancer near my left eye that was up in my eyelid and along my nose, not in the eye, but around the eye and the muscle around the eye, which led to multiple surgeries that year because it was a cancer that wasn't treatable by radiation or chemotherapy. So surgery was the way to try to minimize the cancer. And then I went about 5 years cancer free. And then in 2019, 2021, it just kept getting reoccurrences come back. And we tried different types of treatment that were, worked in a lab, but were very experimental because I have a rare form of cancer. So when there's only 500 cases reported a year, there isn't a lot of study done on the type of cancer that I have. And as we started down the journey of immunotherapy, I started to have side effects, which are pretty intense. And along the line of that year, when I was getting hit with those side effects, my devotionals were kept with all the verses in the Bible about an eye, one eye, all those type of things. I'm like, okay, God, do you want my eye? Because it's okay. And then shortly after that, I had a call from my doctor of 10 years, Diana, we've been fighting for your eye for 9 years. It's time to fight for your life. The cancer had started to grow behind my eye and was resting on the dura of the brain, which then led to a pretty intense surgery to remove the eye. And so if you're not on video, I have a skin flap from my leg. So a piece of my leg skin is used as a flap to cover where my left eye was. That's my look. Very unique look, but also creates a lot of unique opportunities to be able to talk with people and answer questions because I get a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's the obvious when you meet and it's part of your story, but it's not the story, and that's what I want our listeners to hear. We first started talking, she's written books. She is a consultant, a coach to leaders and corporations, a culture builder. She speaks to groups of people, students in particular, all the time. She is out there, and it is one of those things that you look at, you say, okay, what happened? But I wanna hear your story, and that's why I wanted to do that. I know it's a little blunt, but I thought it's not who you are, and that's what I took away from because I've met a lot of people that have had physical challenges, and they become that challenge. They identify as that challenge. You don't. You have the challenge, you've been through what you've been through, the struggle with cancer, the loss of your eye, but it's really obvious, for anybody, and I didn't spend that much time with you, maybe an hour, and it's so obvious that you just refuse for that to be your identity. It is reality, but not identity. Can you talk about that just a little bit? Because again, I think about you speaking to kids, I think about you speaking to corporations, and your message is how do you sum it up?
Yeah, and I think I can remember the first day I got that, I went into the office and I went in by myself to get news that I knew was bad news, and I went by myself. But I was a new single mom, and I think as a new single mom, you're going, I can do anything. A lot of moms have that, right? And it was a bit impactful because I was a new single mom of two little boys, and I went home that day and I was struggling a bit trying to figure out, okay, God, why now? Why this timing? And a friend knocked on my door and reminded me that I wasn't alone and that we could do this and God was going to be there for it. And it took me back to, there's been multiple tough lessons in my life. And I was reminded of my grandmother, a book that I read in college when I found out I had injured my knee 2 years in a row, and so I went to college to play basketball, and guess what? I didn't get to do that very much. But Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning was a very impactful book to me in that season and has stuck with me because he was in a Nazi prison, he was beaten, he was starved, and he was still known for being kind and thoughtful to the prison guards that tortured him. And one of his quotes was, no matter what happens to me, nobody can steal my freedom to choose how I respond. And that has been impactful for me throughout my life, and particularly in this journey. Cancer does not have to define me. I get to choose. It has refined me. I certainly have been refined through the process, but it has not defined me.